Brandy, aka Miss B, and welcome to episode 1 of Give It Grace podcast. I already know what y'all thinking. Everybody and their mama starting a podcast in 2024. Why are you starting a podcast in 2024? And I got y'all. I actually wanted to start a podcast back in 2018. I was still in grad school at the time, but it was the time that I had really got exposed to podcasts. I was listening to things like Horrible Decisions. I was listening to Sarah Jakes Roberts podcast. I was listening to Cocktails Dirty Discussions. And so it was really a time where I had got exposed to podcasts. It seemed like something that I wanted to do. But during that time, it really just wasn't a good time for me. I really didn't know myself all the way. And again, I was in grad school, was stressful. Fast forward to now, to be quite honest with y'all, God told me to start this podcast. For real. No lie. I'm really just trusting him and, leaning into his grace to start this. This has been months of planning and talking myself into doing something that I don't feel completely adequate to do. But we in a season that we're going to do it scared. We're not going to let, our insecurities, our shortcomings, our inadequacies stop us from doing the things that God has called us to do. And so I'm here. Just to get into the idea behind the podcast, the reason that I call it Give It Grace is because something that I constantly need in order to navigate this world and really to survive, and not only survive but thrive in this world, is grace. It's what I lean into it. I'm grateful for it. And for those of you who may not know, human beings, we really ain't shit. And we gonna cuss on this podcast. God's still working on us. But human beings, we really ain't shit. And we really don't deserve all of the wonderful things that we get to experience in this life. But because of God's grace, we do. And I'm so grateful for it. So grace is responsible for all of the things that we get to experience and enjoy in this life that we don't really deserve. And so I'm grateful for that. The idea behind this podcast really came from, like I said, I was listening to Sarah Jakes Roberts. Shout out to SJR. That's my big sis in my head. And she had a segment of her podcast that was called Rescue Eve. And so this was a segment that she would take stories of people who the internet was sort of dragging. And these were stories of people who were out here who knew better but didn't do better. Like Eve. Eve knew better and didn't do better. And so she would take them and she would talk with her delegation about these stories through a different perspective and see if they could rescue those people who are being dragged. And so I really loved that idea because, especially in this day and age, I feel like we need more rescuing, particularly people of influence being dragged in the comments. The comment section is not a safe space. Not a safe space at all. Y'all be wilding in them comments sometimes. No one on this earth was made to be perfect. We weren't designed to be perfect. The only human who walked this earth who was perfect was Jesus. And he was still crucified, which is the most horrible death, at the hands of human beings. So my hope for this podcast is really to build a community where grace is the default response to life mistakes, to mishaps. I really envision a world where we can navigate through our imperfections and where people can navigate through their imperfections and make mistakes with confidence, knowing that grace is always available to them. The same grace that is extended to us in our imperfections, we as human beings can start to do that for each other. And so, y'all, this ain't no regular podcast. This is a Godcast, okay? Shout out to Kanye West. He was the first one who said that, okay? This is a Godcast. But like I said, God's still working on us. He's still working on us. So let's just jump right into the episode, y'all. So the first segment of our show is called Give Them Some Grace. And so this is the segment of our show where we talk about a person of influence who's really being dragged in the media or dragged online and see if we could give them some grace. I know that this segment is going to stretch a lot of y'all, but this is what we here for, right? Okay, but just remember, none of us is perfect. We're all navigating through this world, and we all deserve some grace. So the first person that I want to talk about on this show is August Alsina. Okay. So August Alsina recently appeared on Nick Cannon's Council Culture, where he discussed his idea of love. So there's a BET article, and the BET article reads: During a recent appearance on Nick Cannon's Council Culture podcast, the No Love singer refused to label who he chooses to love, saying that God exposed him to so many different types of people. To be honest with you, bro, he says, it's not even me that's opening my heart, Alsina said when he was asked about loving another man. It's that power that's higher than myself. I always say that the greatest gift that God could have ever given me was exposure, to expose me to so many different kinds of people, places, and things. So I wanted to bring this up because in response to that interview, Akbar V responded to an Instagram post that the Shade Room posted of a clip of that segment. Um, and so basically, Akbar wasn't happy that he was, talking about God and his experience, basically saying, that God wasn't in it and people need to stop playing with God and all of the things. And, if we go to the comment section of that post, a lot of people were dragging August Alsina, in the comments. People were saying, stop playing with God. God made Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, and so on and so forth. But I want to take a moment to see if we could try to give August Alsina some grace. There's a story in the Bible, and y'all, I'm not a preacher. I'm still learning the word. Okay? So give me some grace. But there is a story in the Bible where Jesus is preaching to a group of people, right? And so one of the leaders of that group, that society, brings a woman who had committed adultery. So she had cheated on her husband, and says to Jesus, like, our law says we're supposed to stone this woman to death. So Jesus, you tell us what we're supposed to do, right? And so, Jesus at first he bends down, he's writing in the sand, he's not really responding to them, and they're kind of like, Jesus, like, what do you want us to do with this woman? And so Jesus stands up and he says, he who is without sin cast the first stone. So he basically says, all y'all folk in here that want to stone this girl, the first one of y'all who hasn't done anything, who hasn't sinned, who hasn't made a mistake, y'all throw the first stone. And even taking it back, just think about what it would be like to be that woman, right? To be, to have your mistake, or your shortcoming publicized to the whole society, to your peers, to your leaders. Like, can you imagine the shame, the embarrassment, When Jesus says that, one by one, all of the people in the crowd left. One by one, they left. And when he got up and he realized that there was no one there, no one had stoned her, he was like, wow, no one among you has condemned you. If none of them have, neither will I. And so I love that scripture because it really highlights, how us as human beings, the way that we treat each other, it matters to God. It matters to him. And that's really why I wanted to start this podcast, because I feel like if we're extending grace that's unmerited, so people aren't asking for it, it's unconditional, meaning that anybody can get it anytime, any place, any scenario, and undeserved. People don't deserve this grace. We don't deserve the grace. Then we'll make a better world. And it's not about excusing shortcomings and things that are wrong, but it's just about extending grace. Nobody on this earth is perfect. We all fall short. So just going back to August, right? August is talking about his personal experience with love, and how God, he's grateful that God has opened his his mind and, exposed him to so many different things. And so people are really, throwing stones at August because he involved God, and they don't feel like he should have involved God. But I'm here to let y'all know that if y'all didn't already know this, anything that involves love is God, because God is love. That's going to stretch some people. But God is love. He is. So, I just want to ask, like, if we as an imperfect people can give August some grace. It took incredible introspection, self-awareness, vulnerability for him to sit among a group of men and talk about his love for another man. Like, that took incredible strength. We don't really need to understand it. We don't need to agree with it. But I do think that we do need to give August some grace. Especially because August, over the last couple of years, he's really dealt with a lot of dragging. The thing about the entanglement with Jada, his drug use, all of those things. And I think that, for him to still be standing, that should be saluted. Because it couldn't be some of us. Thank God that we ain't nobody. Thank God that we don't live under a microscope every day, where all of our decisions require an explanation, or all of our experiences, the world wants to know why and what and what. And like, the thing is, people are so uncomfortable with this because they want August to define himself. They want him, they're like, okay, you love another man. Like, are you gay? Are you bisexual? Are you whatever? And it really, it's always a good time to mind our business. Mind our business. And the thing about it is, in this day and age with the media and social media and how we have so much access to these people of influence and our celebrities, we feel like we're owed an explanation for certain things, and we are not. They don't owe us nothing. Mind your business. He's talking about his experience with love. So I might be alone in this, but I want to extend some grace to August Alsina. And I know that him sharing his story and being that vulnerable helped somebody else. And that's really all that it's about. So August Alsina, I want to give you some grace. And can we, the nobodies and the social media commenters, give August Alsina some grace? Because honestly, we don't even know the full story. We will never know the full story. And that little minute clip is not the full story. Y'all don't know that man. So let's give him some grace. Let's give him some grace. So the next segment of the show is called Give It Some Grace. And this is the time where we talk about everyday annoyances and things that get on our nerves. Because a lot of things that get on our nerves. And we try to look at them through a perspective of grace. Let's see if we could give it some grace, right? So recently, I was in Philly, right? And I was riding in my car, minding my business, bumping my music. And I really didn't know where I was going because it was like I had never been to that neighborhood before. And I was, trying to navigate the GPS. I really didn't know where I was going. But I don't know where a car literally speeds past me aggressively and cuts me off, speeds up, just to get stopped at the same red light that I get stopped at. And I don't know why, but this gets on my nerves. It's like, you did all of that just to be stopped at the same red light as I'm stopped at. I don't understand that. And it really gets on my nerves. So how I typically want to respond, how I typically want to react to this situation is I want to pull up beside them at that red light, and I want to pull out the biggest, fattest middle finger I can find. Like, I want to pull out the biggest middle finger I can find and roll down my window and just give it to them. Like I said, God's still working on this. So I know that's not how we should react, right? Or sometimes I want to just do the same thing that they did to me. Give them a taste of what I got. Because really, you did all of that for what? And still get stopped at the same red light as me? I don't get it. So we're going to try to see how we can react to these types of situations when someone cuts us off just to get stopped at the same red light as us. Let's see how we can react with some grace. So whenever I'm in a situation where I don't understand why people do what they do, I like to give them a reason. And it's like, you have to give people a reason. And if you don't have a reason, if you don't have one, you could just make one up. You can just make one up that suits you, that makes you feel better about this scenario. And what I like to do too is also, when I'm in these scenarios, is like ask a question before you pass a judgment. So like in this scenario, it's like, okay, why did he do that? Why did he have to speed around me like that? What was the purpose of that? So I'm like, was he rushing? Maybe he was rushing. So I'm like, why is he rushing? And then at that point, I'm like, okay, I know why. He is rushing because his wife was in labor. And she told him that if he misses the birth of their child, that she was going to divorce his ass and take him for half of everything that he got. So when he get the call, he's rushing. He might have just got the call when he was right behind me and was like, let me go. Let me try to speed this thing up so I could get there so my wife don't leave me and take my new kid and everything that I have for everything that I own. So maybe that was the reason, right? I don't know why he was rushing, but I gave him a reason. With this perspective, I'm able to be like, okay, I can understand why he was rushed. I can understand the need for him to do that. Right? And I could try to show it some grace in that moment. Because one thing about it is like, you really cannot control everything that happens to you. You really cannot control. You cannot. It's impossible. But the one thing that you can control is how you respond to situations when things like that happen. Right? And this is important because let me tell y'all some shocking statistics about road rage, okay? There was a total of 12,610 injuries and 218 murders attributed to road rage over the last 7 years in the United States. Let me give you another one. In 2022, someone was shot and killed in a road rage incident every 16 hours. People out here losing their life over road rage. Let me give you another one. There are 30 murders annually linked to road rage. That's crazy. That's crazy. Because in those situations, it does get on your nerves. It will get on your nerves. In those situations, you could literally take a step back, give people a reason, and then give it some grace. And if more people operated like this, more people thought like this in our world, then maybe it wouldn't be 30 murders every single year in the United States behind road rage. Maybe it would be 15, maybe 10, if we just take a step back and just try to give it some grace, right? So let me know how y'all feel about it. I feel like this is good. Is this good to y'all? I feel like it's good. I really do feel like it's good. Um, but yeah, somebody cut you off, give them a reason. They wife in labor. They in labor. If they a woman, give them a reason. And it doesn't have to be true. You can make it up. Just make yourself feel better so that you don't react impulsively and aggressively, even though that's what they deserve. But remember, grace is undeserved favor. So even though you don't deserve this grace that I'm giving you, I'm going to give it to you anyway. And that's how we do it. That's how we make it. All right? That's how we do it. All right. The last segment of our show is called Give Me Some Grace. And this is the opportunity where I'm going to share personal experience about something or a situation where I could have given out more grace or received grace. And it's also an opportunity for you to write to me. You can do it anonymously about situations in your life where you could have given grace or received grace. I'm a little embarrassed by this story, to be quite honest. But I'm gonna tell it to y'all anyway. I was dating a guy in college, right? And so in college, when I lived on campus, there was, there's a dining hall where you go and get all of your food, right? So on Wednesdays was Wings Wednesdays, and that was my favorite day of the week, honestly, because the wings was bussin', as my nephew would say. And so this particular Wednesday, I was with the guy that I was dating, and it just so happened to be snowing outside, and it was like giving like blizzard snow. It was like, that snow that is just starting, so it's like you can still maneuver and get around, but it's snow, and it's cold. So the guy I was dating, he went to the dining hall. I was comfy and warm in my dorm room. I ain't had to get up. I ain't had to go nowhere. He went, got the wings, brought them back. So when he brought the wings back, I noticed that he brought ranch instead of blue cheese. And I know some of y'all is like already like, okay, and like, what's the problem? Like, it's ranch. People eat wings with ranch all the time. And I love ranch. I'm not gonna lie, I love me some ranch. I love ranch on barbecue chicken. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. I like ranch on pizza. And ranch, honestly, ranch is the number one dressing to go on salad, to be honest, to me, in my opinion. So I love ranch, but it's something about blue cheese with wings that gives something that ranch just don't give with the wings. So, I was highly disappointed that he had brought me ranch instead of blue cheese. And I could have been grateful because honestly, I didn't have to leave my dorm room. He went and got everything for me, brought it back. I could have been grateful and just ate my wings with ranch. I could have did that. I should have did that. To be honest, I should have did that. But no, so I'm moping around, and so naturally he's just a really nice guy. He wanted to make me happy, and so he goes back out in the snow, back to the dining hall, just to get me blue cheese, y'all. And so when he came back with it, I was super happy. I was super happy that I had my blue cheese because I was about to go in on them wings. But I also felt like an asshole. I really did. I felt like a big asshole because like he really his food got cold, and he went back out to go get me some blue cheese when he did bring me some ranch. I didn't need the blue cheese, but I wanted it. I wanted it. Even that right there is like, sometimes we just got to be grateful for the things when we have the things that we need, even if we don't have the things that we want. I could have given him some more grace. I could have given him some grace. I could have just ate my wings with the ranch and just been happy. But I didn't. And the poor man, he had to go back out there in the snow. And the food got cold. And I know he was like, she ain't even worth all this. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I really could have given him some more grace in that situation, but I didn't. So that's my story. Y'all, like I said, this opportunity for y'all to share y'all stories of y'all could have used some more grace or y'all could have given some grace. So tell me below if there's ever been a scenario where somebody got your order wrong and it got on your nerves and you could have gave that person some grace. Well, that brings us to the end of our episode, y'all. If you stayed and tuned into the entire episode, I love you. Thank you. I'm sending you light, positivity, love, and grace. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye, y'all.